This week on Technique Tuesdays, how will Foundation purify Ring of Honor? Hello and welcome, I'm Joe Hendry and this is Technique Tuesdays. This week we have a Foundation special. The match itself features Jay Lethal, Rhett Titus and Wheeler Yuta versus Jonathan Gresham, Tracy Williams and Fred Yehi.
Show the world what this company was built upon. That's honor, respect, and pure frickin' wrestling.
Last week, we saw absolute carnage and perhaps one of the most violent, disorganized, brutal car crash presentations we've ever seen in Ring of Honor. Oh! And on the other side of the extreme is Foundation, where we have pure wrestling. It's all about the sport.
Oh, and Lethal with the special request that we heard.
Yeah.
And maybe this is how they picked the teams. Maybe it's because Lethal wanted to get in there, get in there with Tracy Williams.
Foundation have the belief that iron sharpens iron, and that if they're going to train together in the dojo, they might as well do the same thing on television. It's that friendly competition that Caprice Coleman compared to Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan. And what you will notice early on in the matchup is that we don't see violence. There are no strikes right off the bat. It's all about pure technical wrestling. And what I want to talk about is the style of professional wrestling that you are seeing from Foundation here. You may have heard of the term chain wrestling, when a particular wrestler chains several moves together to get from one situation to the end result they want to achieve. You may have also heard of catch as catch can, which basically roughly translates to take what you can get. If you're skilled enough to take the hold, then you take it. Also, it's referred to in Britain back in the 60s and 70s and beyond as hold for hold wrestling.
It's almost like in sports, there's always these rivalries, sometimes one-sided as they may be. 1, 2, and maybe Tracy Williams is Jay Lethal's kryptonite.
And since we're on the subject of British hold-for-hold wrestling, I'm going to take you to a moment in the match that is clearly inspired by the old 1970s world of sport wrestling that used to be huge on British television. In fact, what you're about to see is inspired by a very famous match between classic British wrestlers Terry Rudge and Marty Jones.
Just 23 years old, the youngest man in this match, and he's going to work already, wrist lock, pushing down.
It's weird, there's no familiarity on each side, because you would think that Tracy Williams would have picked a side that Yehi was on just because of that.
Fred Yehi has obviously been studying his old British wrestling world of sport tapes, because this Terry Rudge special is, in my opinion, the best counter to the hammerlock or wristlock position. Fred Yehi instead switches from being in a wristlock to maneuvering himself, so he's almost placing himself in the hammerlock position. What he's going to do is, rather than fight the grip, he is going to use the weight of his body and he's going to sit down. That is going to cause Wheeler Yuta to have a moment of confusion. He puts his shoulder into the ankle joint of Wheeler Yuta and he pulls back on the heel of his opponent, driving his shoulder forward. He isolates the leg, but again chaining one move to the next, and he does what we would call passing the guard. Fantastic British wrestling and an amazing tribute to Terry Rudge.
Wrist lock here, knuckle lock, and Yehi with the power advantage. This man is strong. Wow!
Both Yuta and Yehi are not themselves officially in Foundation, but as Ian Riccoboni quite rightly pointed out, this is the perfect showcase on who knows what could happen down the line, and trust me, they fit in perfectly.
Collar and elbow. Yuta with a victory in non-Ring of Honor competition against Gresham.
Yuta and Gresham are in a double knuckle lock position. Now, there's a series of things that can occur next, but what Yuta does is to avoid getting into a test of strength with the bulkier and arguably stronger Jonathan Gresham. What he does is, just like Yehi passed the guard earlier, this is a standing version of it when Yuta puts his left leg past the left leg of Jonathan Gresham. He isolates it and he uses it to get the foot trip and bring him down to the mat, avoiding that test of strength. From that position, Gresham is going to push his arm upwards to avoid being pinned, and rather than fight that and again getting a test of strength with Gresham, Yuta instead uses that force against Gresham. Instead of trying to force the arm back down, he simply switches round and claims the armbar that is already in the air ready for the taking. Fantastic technique. And in doing so, he has forced the Ring of Honor champion to get to the ropes. That may not seem like a big deal, but when you do that to the person who is known as being the best technical wrestler in the world, that is making a statement.
Then that brawl that we saw with the chairs and the tables and the barricades. And for the first time in this match, we're seeing the World Tag Team Champions mix it up in the ring.
What usually helps Gresham and Lethal get the victory in their matches actually is working against them because they're on opposing teams. Let me explain.
It is Lethal and Titus. Double teaming Gresham. Back elbow, leapfrog. Oh no! Lethal takes out Titus.
Lethal whips Gresham into the corner. He goes for the up and over, but instead Lethal knows it's coming and he goes for that waist lock.
Wheelbarrow spins through. Combination cutter on Titus.
Gresham knows he is perfectly in position for that combination cutter that they like to hit. He does the forward roll. That gives him enough momentum to hit the cutter on Titus, and Lethal is confused because the muscle memory of that situation is usually a good thing, but he's just done it in such a way that has caused damage to his tag team partner. Brilliant strategy from Gresham, taking advantage of the synergy between him and Lethal as tag team champions.
Tag to Titus. Forearms exchanged.
Next, I want to talk about the increased aggression, determination, and passion that we see in Rhett Titus. And again, it's all fun and games when you're applying technical holds to each other and shaking hands at the end of it and laughing and joking, but when you start elbowing each other in the face as hard as you can, friendships maybe go to the side for at least a few minutes, and that's what seems to happen here.
And if a picture's worth 1,000 words, that one's worth 1,000 strikes off the ropes. Titus cashes. Gresham, Magna TA style belly to belly. 2.
What Rhett Titus does is he sacrifices himself to an extent and charges forward. And Rhett has the wherewithal to grab Gresham with this powerful butcher's grip. He runs him back into the ropes, hits a beautiful belly to belly suplex, and immediately into the cover as well. Hooks the other leg. Very impressive from Rhett Titus. And it's got an intensity to it, an increased intensity that we're seeing from Rhett Titus week to week now. Let's circle back to the synergy between Jonathan Gresham and Jay Lethal, because that story really is at the center point of the conclusion of this matchup. There's a point where Jay Lethal looks like he is just about to hit the lethal injection on Fred Yehi.
Lethal injection on Gresham!
But as Caprice Coleman correctly points out, Fred Yehi is the legal man in the match. So Gresham, being the tactician that he is, knows that it would be worse for Fred Yehi to be hit with that move. It would put him at risk in the match. So instead, what Gresham does is, knowing he's not the legal man, makes himself the sacrificial lamb, pushing Fred Yehi to the side and instead being the one to absorb the lethal injection to keep the matchup in play. But what he didn't count for is that Rhett Titus, with that increased determination that we talked about before, is waiting in the wings.
But Gresham's not the legal man!
Gresham, he pushed his partner out of the
That
way
was
to
his
protect
partner
him,
too!
but it's over now.
3, wait a minute!
Absolute picture perfect from Rhett Titus. It takes a special kind of athlete to finish a match of this caliber with a drop kick, and that's exactly what Rhett Titus has done. That is a huge win for Rhett, huge win for his team, but I want to know where you stand, because this could not be more different to what we saw last week. On one hand, we've got the technical brilliance of Foundation, that sportsmanship, that friendly competition, and on the other side, we've got what we saw last week, which was a car crash. It was carnage, it was destruction. Where do you stand? What do you prefer? Or which one do you think is going to become the ruling ideology or faction here in Ring of Honor? Let me know in the comments what you think. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. This has been Technique Tuesdays, folks. If you want to support the company, and I'm very thankful, by the way, to Ring of Honor for supporting me, allowing me to keep creating content. So if you want to support this awesome company, support the best wrestling in the world, go to shop.honor.com, also ROHWrestling.com, and go subscribe to Honor Club. It is an unbelievable service where you get to see this and so much more. The history of the company is right there for you to watch. Alright folks, I've been Joe Hendry. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you again next week. This is the prestigious one, Joe Hendry here to tell you about ShopHonor.com. That's the new location to go to for all things Ring of Honor merchandise. We've got an amazing selection with the prestigious Ring of Honor logos, but also we've got merchandise for all your favorite Ring of Honor stars. So go support the company, go support your favorite wrestlers, ShopHonor.com. I'll see you there.